Anthony Alexander also works for the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park. But he is South African. He was appointed by the Peace Parks Foundation to develop the project. Every day he endeavours to encourage wildlife, in particular elephants, to return to this part of the park, despite the years of hunting and mines.
Elephants live to 70 odd years, and they've got an incredible memory. So 70 years ago they were quite regular in Mozambique, and then of course the war came in the 70s and 80s, and they all moved to safety in South Africa. So it was a very gradual process of them coming back into Mozambique. It was initially the translocation, and an elephant are quite intelligent. They can feel and sense where the mines are, and they're very wary of human impact as well. And with time, we're seeing more and more come over. They realize that it's safe.
To develop the park, over 4,000 animals, including numerous elephants and zebras, were moved from South Africa to Mozambique, where they are now free to thrive and reproduce.
It's magical. I mean, 5-6 years ago, you wouldn't have seen this. Beautiful water, beautiful vegetation, beautiful zebras, really special. It's a long process. It's a slow process to get the wildlife numbers up. But its proximity to Kruger National Park is key. I mean, Kruger gets over 1 million visitors. If we can get 100,000 or 200,000 of those visitors, the park will be financially self-sustainable, and that's ultimately what we're looking towards.
Ecotourism is 90% tourists from overseas destinations. And these are the people that are driving the initiatives relating to wildlife tourism. And with that, obviously, employment much needed and foreign currency earning.
And Africa, it's not an industrialized continent at all. There's not a lot of manufacturing taking place. But there's incredible landscapes and incredible wildlife. So if for every 8 visitors to Africa, you create 1 job.
Peace parks have the potential to augment economic activity. And so we should not just think of them as naive ideas, utopian ideas, but as potential opportunities for economic development and growth in border regions.
For the time being, there are very few lodges open on the Mozambican side. Take this rustic hotel, for example, Marchampane. The only guests are a handful of South Africans in the know, or else foreign tourists looking for a stopover point on the way from Kruger Park to the beaches in Mozambique. To attract more visitors, there needs to be an increase in wildlife. Roads need to be opened up and the infrastructure developed. All of this implies intensive cooperation between South Africans and Mozambicans.
So I'd just like to discuss the Shingwedzi Cliffs Trail.
Back in the days of apartheid, something like this was unthinkable. Anthony, the South African, works under the orders of Antonio, the Mozambican.
How we're going to get across the border, how we're going to operate the trail.
And just to remind you to take with you the tourism manager, just for him to be exposed into this environment.
With the creation of Limpopo National Park, several initiatives were undertaken to make the zone accessible, because the goal is to allow visitors to come and see the great potential this region has.
I think that's one of the beauties of the Peace Parks concept, is it enables people to move across boundaries, to set aside those differences and to really see how they can look at optimizing the shared natural resources for the benefit of all the partners. It's not your elephant or your bird or my bird, it's ours. Recognizing that, to then put in place mechanisms to help manage and protect those shared resources.
But one danger lurks amid all these efforts: poaching. Local hunters, paid by traffickers, have already killed a few rhinoceroses in the Mozambican park to sell their horns.
So this is more than likely a poacher's fire. You can see the way they've burnt the tips of the wood. Not too much coals. Poaching, in particular rhino poaching, and more so elephant poaching, is perhaps the biggest threat to the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park.
If the rhinoceroses die, the park could die too for lack of visitors. This threat is yet another reason encouraging South Africans and Mozambicans to join forces and stand guard against a bane that plagues the entire region. For the proponents of peace parks, the solution lies not in building higher and higher fences to protect the territory, but in fostering co-development and creating jobs through ecotourism. This is still the best way to discourage poachers and limit illegal immigration.
There's a lot of pressure on the GLTP to put fences up because there's a belief that it stops poachers, but the reality is a fence doesn't stop a person, the fence can only stop wildlife. This fence can be jumped over quite quickly. If you look at the border between USA and Mexico, the most technologically advanced fence, it doesn't stop people. And I think the best method is to make sure that there's economic prosperity on both sides of the border, and one can do that through tourism, which is the most suitable land use for this area. And by doing that, one doesn't need fences anymore.
My dream, wouldn't it be wonderful if from the sea of Mozambique to the Drakensberg Mountains, there are no fences? I mean, in an international, and I think that was one of Dr. Rupert's aims and objectives through peace parks. Peace parks was to form smaller areas, but with the idea of growing them greater and greater.
Today, there are over 33 of these identified peace parks in Africa. In southern Africa, there's 18, jointly cover an area of over 1 million square kilometers, which is a significant expanse of land. I mean, that is equivalent to the size of France and Germany combined. In fact, it's a little bit bigger than that.
Certainly the Peace Parks Foundation and their work in Southern Africa makes a very cogent economic case for peace parks, and they have used it quite admirably as a means of attracting tourism, particularly in transboundary areas. So there is clearly an economic case to be made for peace parks, and not just a utopian, naive idea